As you know, I like bonus damage as an offensive stat. In fact, I reach a point in which all my builds are using bonus damage. Now, after the nerf, I actually switched to bonus damage now, because for me, it's actually working. In this video, I'm going to give you an answer or show you why probably the thing you have heard a lot of time that bonus damage is only useful if you are doing a lot of hits is true or not. Because it may be true, but not for the reason that you are making more hits. Because if you are doing more hits, your critical and your heavies are also triggering, so it doesn't make any sense to make this relation between more hits and bonus damage. Okay? So let's get into the data. So basically I have defined two weapons here, one with low base damage, another with high base damage. For example, crossbow, wand, dagger, etc. For high, bow, spear, staff, okay? And then I'm defining an average number of bonus damage. Normally, if you want to really push your bonus damage to high values, you will be looking here at almost 800, okay? But 450 is an average value for this test. And then we have some critical damage boosts, 30%, 50%, and 70%. Then I pick some skills from the weapons I play. I play crossbow, bow, wand, dagger, and spear. So I'm picking quickfire, weak point shot, strafing, zephyr, explosive fury, phoenix barrage, and mad sword dance. This is the scaling of each of these skills, and this is the damage numbers, okay? Now, let's add bonus damage to these numbers over here to actually calculate the total damage that we are doing, and these are the numbers, okay? And finally, let's calculate the percentage of bonus damage involved in these numbers, okay? So this is what we get. For example, in this case, 52.63% of this total damage was from the bonus damage, okay? From this bonus damage. So what can we get from this data, okay? Notice how the skills where bonus damage is more significant, okay? Here in quickfire, strafing, phoenix barrage, and mad sword dance meet two requirements. One of the requirements is that they are doing a lot of hits. Sure, so you maybe say, okay, so what you said at the beginning holds true. If you do many hits, bonus damage is actually better. But no, it's completely unrelated to the fact that these skills are doing more hits. These skills have higher contribution of bonus damage for two reasons, okay? And it's basically this. The scaling. Look at this. Scaling for quickfire is rather low. For strafing is low. For phoenix barrage is low. And for mad sword dance is not as low, but still is not as high as the others, okay? That's why the damage that's why bonus damage is still a heavy contributor to the total damage when using these skills, okay? But notice this, okay? Except in the case of phoenix barrage, because we are actually looking at 0.673, yes? So we are really looking at not that high damage. So except in this situation, look at all the others. Sure, for example, Quickfire is 52. Mass Sword Dance is 44. But Strafing is already in the 30s, 30A. Why? Because the base damage is the other contributor factor to determining whether bonus damage is good or not. Look at this number, 450, right? 450 is more than the average damage we have with the low base damage weapon, okay? It's actually the max damage. By contrast, when we use a weapon with high base damage, this number is even below the average. So there is more room here to grow from the average to the max damage. That's why when you are working with high hitting weapons, it's better to focusing on the stars, focusing critical and focus in heavy, because you want to try to maximize your probability of landing an attack with this number over here, with your max damage. By contrast, when you are using a low hitting weapon, it's not really that relevant because, as I said, basically the bonus damage you can achieve is going to be actually higher than your max damage. We can look at the comparison here. So for example, Quickfire here with the average base damage, okay? With bonus damage, counting the bonus damage, we have 855, right? Let's assume we don't use bonus damage. We just want to boost critical and critical damage for this particular scenario. We will get to, for example, 30% critical damage, and still we don't meet this number. This number will be more or less at 40% of critical damage, okay? Because at 50% we already go over this number, okay? So more or less, let's say about 40% or something like that. So we will need to invest and get 40% critical damage, taking into consideration that building critical damage resistance is so easy. So we will need to push critical damage to even a higher number, maybe to 70 critical damage to be able to do a hit with 40%, something like that. I posted already a video about this topic a few weeks ago, okay? Let's look another skill. Let's look, for example, at Zephyr. Zephyr with average damage is 3000 basically, counting bonus damage, okay? But look at this, just with 30%, it's already a lot, but we don't even need to add a critical damage. Just look at the damage of the crit, and this is already more than adding bonus damage to the average number. Why? Because the scaling is so high. When you have a high scaling in a skill, bonus damage is irrelevant. You don't want to play bonus damage in these scenarios because it's pointless. You are not getting any benefit. That's why we see here that it's 30% here, and the moment it's a crit, it goes down to 9.24 because it's irrelevant. If it's a heavy, it's less than 5%. So you don't really want to focus on bonus damage when you are working with high scaling skills, okay? So what's the bottom line of this video? The bottom line is that bonus damage is not related at all with attack speed or with the number of hits you are doing, because the hits you are doing can also be critical and can also be heavy and will benefit more from this scenario, from critical, from heavy, okay? Bonus damage is good when you are using weapons with low base damage and you are mainly using skills with low scaling, okay? like this one mentioned here: Quick Fire, Strafing, Phoenix Barrage, and Mad Source Dance. Okay? One final thing. Okay, this is average bonus damage, but what happens if we boost this number by a significant number, let's say to 600, for example? Okay? Let's make the same test I did earlier. So now, with bonus damage, my quick fire is 1000, okay? Notice this now. 1000 is already more than a crit with 50% critical damage. In fact, we are looking here at almost the same damage than a crit with 70% critical damage. So, is it worth it to actually push your bonus damage as high as possible? Sure, it is. Here you have the proof, okay? Personally, I think trying to come up with an hybrid approach is better, because what happens? If you want to push bonus damage as high, you will eventually miss either critical or heavy. And at the end of the day, you want to have the most possible damage. You don't want this damage over here, right? You want this damage over here. You don't want this one over here. You want this one over here. So this will be the best case scenario. A critical with a lot of critical damage boost, heavy, and with a high number of bonus damage, okay? So I think it's better to not just focus in a single stat, but try to find the sweet spot between these three: critical, critical damage, heavy. I'm not really investing in heavy attack damage, because heavy damage is not easy to achieve in the kind of weapons or the kind of armors that I use. It's often more available in iron or plate armors, not in weapons or armors related to, let's say, leather or such. So I never count heavy attack damage, and basically bonus damage. The three: critical damage, and critical with critical damage, heavy without heavy attack damage, and bonus damage. Try to find the bonus, the sweet spot between the three. It's better to create a hybrid profile instead of just focusing on a single stat. Thanks for watching this rather long video. I hope that you now understand that it's not always about hits, but about scaling and the base damage, the thing that determines whether bonus damage is worth it or not. See you on the next one.